I would very much like to introduce everyone to one of my best friends. I mean, I don't want to say the best friend because then there's going to be a lot of fighting going on, but definitely at the top of the list. Hello, hello, hello.
Hello, hello, hello. Or as your nickname for me used to be, the top-notch glamour chick.
Junebug, we go
Yes.
back.
Yes.
So tell these lovely people how we know each other.
So I met Wendell when I first joined LSU Theater. I had come from the University of Lafayette. Oop, there went my lights blinking.
I saw that.
I had come from the University of Louisiana at Lafayette, and so I decided to do some tech things, and the first show that I ever did lightboard for was a show called Lorca in a Green Dress, which you were in and did so fabulously and rocked a very beautiful green silk dress that was made perfectly for you. And I just remember, like, you guys the cast would come out and do like regular warm-ups, just like as a group, and then when everybody would go back, you would kind of hang back on the stage and do like your own thing. And I thought that was really interesting, and I was like, wow, I thought to myself, like, wow, this guy knows what he's doing, like, oh my God. And so I just remember, like, the first few conversations we had were just about, like, it was literally like, hey, Wendell, it's the lightboard op. Do you need some light? And you'd be like, no, I'm fine. And then, like, at the cast party, which was at a house that was dubbed the WB, that's where we
because
actually,
it was
like,
full of drama.
Right. That's where we actually, like, first started talking and, like, actually becoming friends. And then that summer, we did a show together. You were stage manager and I was in the show, called A Conduct of Life. And for being a freshman, that was a very heavy show for me, just like as an actor and also personally. And you really sort of gave me that support, and it was at that point that I was like, I need this person in my life, like, just for forever.
Ever?
So that's where it started, and I want to say that was like 2005, 2006, somewhere around there, because that's when I transferred into LSU. And it's been kind of history ever since, I guess.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're coming up on 15 years. I wouldn't trade any of it. We have gone on such a journey because we became very close friends. Jennifer even housed me for a bit. I wanted to start with Jennifer because this is such a deep conversation.
Yeah.
And you can't do it without someone you know supports you, someone you know loves you, and vice versa. So thank you for being on the first episode.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you. I'm grateful for your friendship. And I think, it's really important, even though we've been friends for 15 years, and we've shared like so much, like these definitely are like hard conversations, but they're hard conversations that need to be had. And that's just the way it is. And, as someone who I love and would, stand up through anything for, I feel really grateful that you asked me to be part of this, because it is something that needs to be heard. It's something that does need to have a huge conversation, and a conversation that needs to go way more in detail than I think people want to. And it's gonna make people uncomfortable, and it's supposed to. But as Brene Brown says, your discomfort does not mean you're in danger. Your discomfort just means you're growing.
That's how we're going to start this bad boy. Oh, I love that quote. So I'm going to say this for every episode, just so that it's solidified, it's clear for the two of us, for future guests, and for anyone watching. This is a conversation. Right. This is not a debate. This is not me trying to convince anyone of anything. I mean, we've been best friends for so long that there's very little I can try to convince you of. But the point is to kind of bring our diverse backgrounds together without the lightning interfering too much.
Sorry.
And
we're just having some storms down here in Louisiana.
It's just a conversation. So I just want everyone to understand that we are just talking from the heart.
Right.
On that note, one thing, and I mentioned this in intro, one thing that is very important for me in having these kind of conversations is making sure that it is two ways.
Mm.
And a big reason why I asked Jennifer to do this is because I have watched her go on a journey, not just from being the light board operator, but to being a very, very strong ally. And so this episode, I want to talk about what it is to be an ally and what kind of things are you looking for in an ally?
So it's interesting because, you know, growing up in small town Louisiana, um, there was definitely a racial divide. Um, my parents, for one, have taught me at a very young age that I am no better than anyone and no one is better than me, and that we are all to be treated fairly and equally. Now, because of where we are, you say that, but there's always going to be some internal bias. You know,
Yeah.
that's the way that the mentality is in a small town. You know, what was different is growing up, I went to a small private school, a local private school, and there were two black girls in the class and then three later. One came later. I remember my entire, from like first grade through eighth grade at this school, I was miserable. I was miserable. I was teased relentlessly. I was bullied. And it was all by the white girls, all by the white girls, led by this one particular girl. And so what made me kind of want to be friends with the black girls in my class was that they stood up for me. And you know, I saw this meme going around that was like, you know, if a black woman has ever stood up to protect you, you know, like raise your hand. And I'm like, yes, from like first grade. For the most part,
No, it's okay.
they were sort of like my, okay, I feel like I'm in a haunted house
Wow.
right now.
I
But
know. It's
but
crazy.
for the most part, they were really the ones that I could like talk to, you know. But the thing is, they sort of kept like I didn't understand what they were going through because I didn't see it. Like they came around and they protected me. In my house, the N word was just like a cuss word. You just didn't say it. I have heard some family members say it out of aggravation or rage or frustration or whatever at a certain situation. I've heard it said as I'm, you know, older and learning more myself, is that it's the microaggressions. It's the, you know, well, you know, you don't act like that. I wasn't taught that it was wrong, but it was just okay because that's what people did. And it wasn't really until I got to college that I actually had friends who told me about their experiences, or I saw their experiences, or, you know, right out of college, I was in an interracial relationship. So I actually saw my privilege at work, you know, like I saw it. So for me, this idea of ally isn't necessarily a new thing. It just goes by a different word. Like when I was raised, it was just being nice to people and like doing the right thing. And if someone was being made fun of or being bullied for their skin color, you'd stand up for them. And now it's called allyship, and which is great. It's just a new term, and that's awesome. Um, but for me, growing older and like especially now that I'm kind of like overdosing myself on like Black history and the Black experience and things like that, just so I can be better versed and better understand and everything like that. Just seeing just how much we didn't learn in school, or how much we weren't told, or how much we relied on, how much we believed what we were told, you know, things like that, situations that probably weren't even true, that we were told, oh, this person's going through that because they're lazy, or they're just not smart, or this or that, knowing that that was just a stereotype and that's something that we were told and we believed, which was
Yeah.
not true. In the most simplest way, just stand up for what's right. Stand up for those that are being done wrong and you know are being done wrong. Because it's not just stand up for what you believe in, because some of what some people believe in isn't right. So it's stand up for what's right, not, you know, and what side of history do you want to be on?
I was gonna say I really like how simple you make allyship, because it is that. It really is just being a decent human being and standing up for someone else. And what I don't like about the word is I don't like how some people assign too much weight to it, that they think the only way to be an ally is 24/7. I have to be shooting this on Instagram and calling out this family member and standing in front of the police as a human shield. It's like, yes, please do some of that, because we do need help. This is not just a Black person's fight, and we'll definitely have an episode about that, because it we can't fix it by ourselves. If we would have a long time ago. But we just want someone to go, you know what? I get it. You're tired. Take a second for yourself. I will still be fighting this fight with you.
You know, if you almost kind of compare it to production, like the Black community's in the spotlight right now, but they need the white people to support them. They need the lighting operator. They need the stage manager. They need the soundboard ops, because they need to be seen and heard. And that's what we're here to do. We're here to make sure that you are seen and heard, and to take over conversations that are too tedious that you guys shouldn't have to have, because you've been having them. And I can't imagine what it's like being a Black person, having to explain like why you shouldn't say the N-word, or, you know, things like that, like just tedious conversations like that you don't need to have, that we as the white community who are allies, right, who are allies, need to be taking on for you guys. And I think everyone has their role. If you are doing right by the people you are supporting, then there is no way to be a wrong ally.
I don't want to prescribe any kind of series of things that you have to tick off to do it. There are so many different ways to that path, just like protest has so many different ways. Protest doesn't just mean stand out on the streets. I mean, there are so many different ways that you can make your voice heard. Same with allyship. There are lots of ways that you can be an ally, but the thing that you have to do, you 100% have to do to be an ally, is to take your ego out of it. It's hard, but if you're constantly being defensive, if you're constantly saying, yeah, but you won't even listen to the other side. So you can't be an ally if you're not listening. Now, the second thing I think that you have to do is be proactive, because listening is what, and I'm going to say y'all, because, you know, I'm going to throw you at all the other white people in the world, but y'all have been hearing us.
Right.
I mean, we, in our group conversation earlier today, you know, we're talking about racism in Disney movies. You know, for me, I'm like, yeah, girl, duh. You know, I remember all these little minstrel show caricatures in quite a few Disney movies. Or they use us to bring in like jazz music, things like that. So I've been seeing it all my life. And so to have my white friends on social media in conversations kind of telling me, well, did you know this? I'm like, yeah, I did. But I am so glad that you have connected with it now, because I'm like, I'm sure we've talked about it at some point. And you went, oh, yeah, okay. And I didn't think you were being dismissive at the time. And I wasn't expecting you to be a leader in those conversations. But now I'm seeing that, especially from people like you. So that's something I want to point out, is what I think of as allyship, not someone who's asking, hey, you're my one Black friend, which is, you know, the title of the show. You're my Black friend Wen. Why do Black people blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I had to learn all of this stuff just like I'm expecting allies to do.
Right. And, you know, what I've encountered, you know, when talking to people on Facebook and stuff, like people who get like that, people who get defensive and blah, 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 blah. There was one time this person online was trying to like defend something that someone had posted, and I was sending like link after link after link. Here's how blah, 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 and this article and that article. And all he did was critique the authors of my articles, which was like PBS and NPR. And I finally told him, I was like, okay, well, now you're just trying to be a troll, because I have given you several articles supporting my argument. You have given me 0 supporting yours, which shows me that all you want to do is troll and fight. Like, that's all you want to do. You have no want or need to educate yourself at all. Like, you could easily do a quick Google search and find the same articles that I just found. As a white person, like, I get frustrated with it. So I can't even imagine the level of frustration that the Black community has, because it's like, you have the internet in your hands. You have an iPhone. Like, Google is an amazing thing.
One huge difference I'm noticing from this point in time to even the 2014 Black Lives Matter movement, even before that, 92, OJ, being in school, and that was just such a big, especially in Louisiana, white-black divide, Uh, but this time is different because this is the first time uh, Black people have actually just outright said, y'all, we're tired.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the first time that non-Black people, allies or otherwise, have actually heard us and said, we get it.
Mm-hmm.
Almost said one of my favorite lines from the Chappelle Show. Celebrate, nigga. But that's how people use their song. And I'm going to use as an example, not that this is a particular thing that you did, and so I'm not saying that, but there were probably times that you and I were talking about something, and I'm like, oh my God, this is so messed up that this happened. And I know you would commiserate, be like, oh yeah, that does suck. But I
Right.
doubt that it went any deeper than that.
Probably at the time, I felt like I was being a good friend, right? Because I didn't necessarily see your problem as like a racial problem. And obviously young and naive me, like, because I was kind of raised with this idea of I don't see color, right? That's the big thing now. I don't see color. I don't see color. Well, see, that's a problem because the systems in our country do. And the systems in our country do see color and they discriminate against color. And, that's the thing is like, it's important to see color because
Yep.
I need to understand what you as a Black person are going through. I need to understand how it's harder for you as a Black person than it is for me. Like I said, how, I grew up with the whole like not seeing color thing. And that in my mind at the time was very, being so young, I was like, hey, I'm doing the right thing. I'm not seeing color. I'm not judging anybody by color, blah, 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 blah. But I didn't understand at the time that was my privilege showing. What people kind of don't understand when it comes to privilege, that especially with the white community, is that privilege is generational, and it doesn't mean that you don't work for what you had. My great-great-grandpa had a pecan orchard. He had all this acreage of a pecan orchard that he and his wife worked himself. However, that land he divvied up to his 7 kids. He gifted land to his kids, so his kids didn't have to buy land. My grandpa did the same thing. My grandpa did not want his lot, so he gave it to my dad and then had bought some other land where he owned a motel and used that land to divvy up for the rest of his 6 kids. That automatically, does that mean that my dad wasn't a hard worker? Hell no. My dad worked from the day that he was 15. My dad would go, because we had a family business. My grandpa would take him out of school to go and work on trucks all night so they would run the next day. That's not taking any of my dad's hard work away. It just means that when my grandpa or when my dad could go to the bank and get a loan on a handshake deal, their Black counterparts could not, which gave them
handshake or otherwise.
That's privilege. Black people couldn't do that. Does that mean that my grandpa wasn't a hard worker? No, that doesn't mean that at all. He worked his ass off, but he had a head start.
We've talked about this before, so I know it might not be the easiest thing to discuss on your side, but for me, Jennifer and I she was driving. At the time, she was always driving, even when I had my own car.
But see, that was my privilege. My parents paid for my gas, so.
I took advantage of, love your parents, thank you. So Jennifer was driving, and I don't remember the topic. I really don't. It's not important. But I know I said something that was just so ridiculous, like something that made no sense, because Jennifer, without missing a single beat, while hand on steering wheel, we're probably singing some Outcast or something, she just says, "Nigga, please." And it was perfect because that's how we use it in my family. I mean, I'm sure she's probably heard me say it. That's how we use it. When someone came at you with some ish, you went, "Nigga, please." And you knew that you were on that level of, okay, you brought me back here. You called me and we're here. And the two of us, we went on that drive like nothing happened. And I'm sure it took a few days or weeks to kind of process it myself, like, oh shit, that did just happen, didn't it? And it was right, because we were so close as friends, we were so connected, that we trusted each other and that we knew each other. So it wasn't when she said the N word, does she go home and say it again? Like, it was none of that. It was just, that's how you use that word correctly.
I know, like, it's a fun memory for you. And I hope it stays that way. And you know what, if you want to continue telling the story, it's our memory, and it's part of our friendship. Like, that's fine. And that's why I was totally fine with you bringing it up today. But even when I said it, knowing that it was okay and like you were okay with it, it still didn't feel right. That word actually doesn't feel right in my mouth. Like, I can't bring myself to say that word. And like I said, it's so loaded, and actually, kind of it's just like looking back on it and knowing what I know now is like, God, did I just hurt my best friend? You know what I mean? Like, did I just hurt my best friend? And obviously you don't see it that way. And I'm so very glad that you don't see it that way. But looking back on it now, it's not my proudest moment. And as you can see, I'm like turning red now. And we talked about, moments in my life when, doing theater in undergrad, with our friend Ruben. We were doing a scene for a directing class from The Dutchman, and it was a scene, and if you really want to see how long the whole Amy Cooper story has been around, read The Dutchman.
Right.
But it's about a white woman who like goes after this black man and then uses her white privilege to get him beat up and arrested and all this other stuff. And there's a moment where she is literally like she tackles.
She weaponizes racism.
Right. And there's a moment when she's literally like, she has pushed him to the ground and she's on top of him and she calls him the N-word like to his face. And there, like, Ruben and I would rehearse outside of rehearsal from the rehearsal with our director, and I was so uncomfortable saying that word to someone that I was so close with at the time. Ruben would say, just say it. This is what she means. You have to be truthful. You have to be honest. And I'm like, I know, but Jennifer, the person, cannot separate to the character. I just couldn't. I think where I learned about the Black experience and Black culture was really my time with Ruben. He got me with hip hop, man.
That's how we get you.
I mean,
you hear Outkast and it's over.
Well, I would go to his house and he'd sit down at his computer and he'd be like, "Have you ever heard of Jay Dilla?" And I'm like, "Who?" And he's like, "Come listen."
So going from that scene and dealing with the N-word and your discomfort, which, like, honestly, that memory for me will always be lovely, but I know 100% from hearing that you went through that process that I didn't know you were going through. That's how I know that we are family and that we are allies, because you didn't stop at that, I got away with it. You went, wait a second, let me track this all the way through and kind of see what this word means. And nope, don't want to do that again. And I appreciate that growth. Even if I didn't need it myself, to know that you went through it is remarkable.
You straight up told me to my face that you would not care if I said it or not.
Depending on the context.
Depending on the context, it would not matter if I said it. No, I won't. Sorry.
It's a bigger topic, the N-word. Who can use it, who can, things like that. And again, conversation. Like, we're not going to solve racism by talking about this word, but at least we can say this is something to discuss.
My husband and I kind of had the conversation of like, look, we understand it's not our word and we will never, ever, ever say it. But we were just kind of wondering, is it derogatory when it comes from a white person, or is the word in general derogatory? And if the word in general is derogatory, how does the Black community feel about using it?